I bet you could have used me just a little time alone to let me be your little shadow, following wherever you go.
Then I got a little older, and you gave me space to grow. I don't ever seem to tell you enough, but I want you to know
God made you my mother. He knew who I'd be when He picked you from the others. He could already see that you would be my hero and everything I wanna be. When God made you my mother, He was being good to me.
I come to you with all my secrets. You never ever judged. And when I'm falling in my weak,
You give me strength to stand back up. No amount of miles could separate us. No place where I don't feel your love. You say I'm the gift that heaven gave ya, but mama, I'm the lucky one. 'Cause when God made you my mother, He knew who I'd be when He picked you from the others. He could already see that you would be my hero and everything I wanna be. When God made you my mother, He was being good to me. If I'm ever a mother, I wanna be like you. If He picks me from the others, I'm gonna try to fill your shoes.
Cause mama, you're my hero and everything I wanna be.
God made you my mother, He was being good to me.
Now He was being good to me.
Well, today we want to honor our mothers. And so we honor your mother today. And normally on Mother's Day, what I have done in the past is to look at examples of godly mothers and encourage our mothers to follow those examples and kind of put all the burden on them. So last year, I decided I would encourage the family to rise up and call her blessed, like Proverbs 31 tells us to do. Today, I want to take us to what God commands us to do concerning our mothers. You see, Exodus 20:12 is one of the 10 commandments. And it's not just for today. It's for every day. In your Bibles, it says in Exodus 20, verse 12, honor your father and mother that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Now, I realize that this is for fathers also. Sometimes we forget that the package deal of parents is made up of individuals. Mothers are to be honored. And I want to really emphasize that today, not just as our parents, but also for all she has been to us through the years and for years to come. Abraham Lincoln said, all that I am and ever hope to be, I owe to my mother. I think Andre Crouch borrowed those lines when he wrote my tribute. All I am and ever want to be. Abraham Lincoln also said, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. Some of you are familiar with Booker T. Washington. and what he meant in education. And of all the accolades that he'd ever received, he said, if I've done anything in life worth attention, I feel sure that I inherited the disposition from my mother. Some of you remember Phyllis Diller. She said, I want my children to have all the things I couldn't afford. Then I want to move in with them. The role of the mother, as been spoken of this morning, is so very different than the role of the father, because it's usually the mother who gets up during the night, who sings and rocks, who chases away the monsters under the bed, who kisses away the pain, who calms the fears, and sees those first steps. And there are many reasons for honoring our mothers. I want to touch on 3 of them today. One of the facts of life I think you probably have realized is that fathers sometimes miss the birth, mothers never do. So in most cases, the first person you ever bonded with is your mother. And that is reason enough to honor her today. You know, Paul uses the analogy of a nursing mother when he describes the tender, gentle care that the church gives to new believers. He said in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, he says, but we were gentle among you, just as a nursing mother cherishes her own children. So affectionately, longing for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you had become dear to us. Did you see the comparison there? It's one thing to be talking about new believers, but Paul's talking about new believers. He's using the image that everybody could identify with. He was using the loving, gentle care of a nursing mother. Solomon wrote in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 3, when I was my father's son, he says, I was tender and the only one in the sight of my mother. That I was all she saw. I was all that she looked upon. The first person to hold you, to cuddle you, to literally give of themselves to you was your mother. Every father knows this, and every father knows the importance of what this means, especially in the first few years. I can remember when I was a father, my firstborn, Timothy, I can remember many a night I would hear him cry, and I was the first to turn to Cindy and say, your child is hungry. You need to take care of that. And then I'd roll back over to sleep. Well, what can I say? I just wasn't equipped for the situation. That's bonding. Bonding is a special quality that mothers enjoy just by virtue of who they are. Fathers, they kind of have to work at bonding. They do it over the years. The way to honor your mother today is to reflect on that bond, respect, love her for all of her sacrifices, and take the time to tell her so. Bonding, that bond between a mother and a child transcends through the years. All the misunderstandings, all the hurts, all the disappointments, sometimes, as moms sometimes experience, even sometimes rejection, bonding transcends all that. And she will patiently wait for the day when wisdom finally catches up with her growing child and their attitudes melt into appreciation. Sometimes it takes years until their adulthood for a child to realize chores were not a punishment. An allowance was not an entitlement. Curfew was not a restriction. Questioning them about their friends was not an invasion of their privacy, and making them eat their vegetables was not child abuse. The Bible talks about mothers who form this kind of bond with their children. A couple of examples come to mind when I think of Hannah, the mother of Samuel, who was barren for so long and then prayed desperately that God would give her a child. God did just that. He gave her a child. He gave her Samuel. But in response, she then lent him back to the Lord. And she took him to grow up with Eli to be a little priest, and eventually would be the transition between the judges and the kings. But she took the first couple of years to keep him home. She kept him till she weaned him. And then for several years after that, she would visit him every year, bringing him presents. You remember in Sunday school, that little robe she brought Samuel. Jochebed was the mother of Moses. We talked about birth choice this morning. Jochebed was one of the first pro-life mothers. She chose to keep her child when the authority of the land wanted all the male children put to death. Even the midwives of Egypt had been instructed to perform what we would call today late-term abortions on live male children as they were being born. But there was a culture of death going on at that time. But Jochebed, she looked upon her child, and this bonding took place, and she stood for life for her son. She not only chose to have the child, she hid him for as long as she could. She kept him for about 3 months until she couldn't hide him anymore, and then she devised a plan to have him adopted. Which tells us, too, that this whole thing we've been looking about with the children's home and adoption is very much a part of what God has in store. He had it in store for Moses. It's never easy to give up a child for adoption, but when it's the best decision for the life of the child, it becomes the blessing when placed in the hands of God. Then God was more than gracious. Moses was discovered. He was adopted by the daughter of Pharaoh. And when she wanted to go out and find a Hebrew woman who could nurse this baby that she had found in the river, she found Jochebed. And the bond continued. We honor our mothers when we respect and love them and remember completely the bond that we have and will always have with them through life. But there's another way to honor our mothers today. And some of you kids aren't going to want to hear this. It's to obey them. When we were young, we obeyed them. But even as we get older, we listen to them. Because Scripture speaks about the law coming from the mother. Not the Mosaic law, but lessons of life that become laws of our life that help us grow. Life doesn't come with a manual. It comes with a mother. And many of the lessons of life are learned in the home with the mother. How to dress yourself, button your shirts, tie your shoes. How to walk without holding on to other things. How to feed yourself and try new things on your plate. How to share your toys. How to look both ways when crossing the street. These sound like small things, and you probably remember sharing them with your children, but down the road, we begin to realize the importance of these simple lessons as we apply them to the bigger areas of our life when we grow. You see, learning how to dress yourself and button your shirts and shoes helps us to take pride in our appearance as we grow older. Walking without holding on to other things teaches us how to walk independently and with confidence. Learning to eat new things on your plate just tells you how to explore new things and find out how to implement them into your life. We share our toys so that we learn how to interact with other people around us as we get older. And we look both ways when crossing the street so that we learn how to watch for and avoid danger as it crops up. Proverbs 1:8 said, "My son, hear the instruction of your father. Do not forsake the law of your mother." Because as he will go on to say in Proverbs 10:1, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a grief of his mother. Mama had laws. Mama had rules in her house. And you probably grew up hearing some of these. Where's your manners? Wipe your feet. Don't slam the door. Clean your plate, for there are starving children somewhere. Pick up your toys. Don't put that in your mouth. Don't hit your brother. Be in by dark, and for everything else, you just wait till your father gets home. The thing is, we never outgrow our mother's lessons. The Bible tells us to continue to honor her words even as we grow older. In fact, Proverbs 23:22 says, "Listen to your father who begot you, and do not despise your mother when she is old." That's because our moms go from being an authority and part of the chain of command in our lives to a chain of counsel. That her years of wisdom she wants to impart and to continue to help you in your growing. God even expects them to help train young women into becoming good mothers and wives themselves. My wife reminds me of this constantly when it comes to our children. Paul told Titus in Titus chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. He says, "The older women likewise, they should be reverent in behaviors, not slanderers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things." Why? That they may admonish young women to love their husbands, to love their children. And like that song that these girls just shared, that they can grow up to be the kind of mom that their mom was to them. We honor our mothers when we bond with them. We honor our mothers by respecting their counsel through the years. There's a third thing I want to share this morning. We honor our mothers by caring for them. Cindy and I both have had this experience of having parents that we've taken in and been caregivers to. And some of you are doing it right now. It's not an easy thing. But it comes a time when all the care that they give us, we turn around and give to them. I'm reminded of one in Scripture who did all three of these things that I've just mentioned to you this morning. And as so he should, because he's the one that commanded us to do it. The Lord Jesus. When we look at the relationship that Jesus had with his mother, we see the bonding, we see the obedience, we see the care. Let me just walk with you through a little part of Jesus' life here. You remember at his birth? We focus on this usually in December. There was this special bonding that took place between Jesus and his mother. It's summarized in a simple verse that many times goes unnoticed during the Christmas season. But go back with me, think about it for just a moment. After the ordeal of giving birth in a stable, after the middle of the night visit by a bunch of shepherds watching over their flocks by night, and possibly even a drum solo from a little drummer boy, who knows? Luke records one of the most endearing passages of love and bonding between a mother and her newborn son. In Luke chapter 2, verse 19, it says, "But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart." That's what the New King James, that's what my Bible has. If you have a New American Standard or some other newer translation, sometimes you'll read it like this: "But Mary treasured all these things, pondering them in her heart." The word to keep, or in this case treasure, it literally means to keep thoroughly, to guard, to treasure, to lock it up. And the word ponder actually means to throw together. On that night, the lives of Mary and Jesus, were thrown together by God, and she was determined to keep the memory of everything that ever happened to her. That night, she bonded with more than just her newborn child. She bonded with her Lord and God. So we see that aspect in Mary's life of the bonding. The only other activity that we see in the life of Jesus before his manhood was when they went to visit the temple. And you remember that. He was left behind accidentally. They thought he was with other parts of the family. They went back 3 days later. They found him in the temple, sitting among the religious leaders, asking and answering questions that were way beyond his years. And when he was finally found, guess who was the one who spoke to him? It was Mary, his mother. In Luke chapter 2, verse 48, it says, "So when they saw him, they were amazed, and his mother said to him, 'Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought anxiously. We were worried about you.' And though his answer was not completely understood at the time, Jesus replied, he was in his father's house, about his father's business, indicating he knew he was the Son of God and that they didn't have to worry about it and shouldn't have been surprised to find him there. He says in verses 49 and 50, he said to them, 'Why did you seek me? Did you not know I must be about my Father's business?' They didn't understand the statement which he spoke to them in verse 50. But here's what I want you to see. Even though Jesus was God the Son and the co-creator of all the universe, as a 12-year-old boy, he returns to Nazareth and was obedient to his parents, to his mother, to his father. You see, that's what the word subject means in verse 51. He went down with them, came to Nazareth, and was subject to them. And once again, we find Mary kept all these things in her heart. There's this incredible relationship between Jesus and his mother. Even at his first miracle, it's his mother who realizes who he is and what he can do. And his reluctance at first, and this is a story found in John chapter 2, is his reluctance at first quickly turns to obedience at her prompting. But even his response to her is one of tremendous respect. You probably have heard this before. In John chapter 2, the story of the wedding at Canaan, it says on the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. The mother of Jesus was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. When they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And his response was to say to her, "Woman." Now, in our culture, in our day, we would look at that phrase and we'd say, "Oh, how disrespectful." But there was nothing of that in their day. That was the most respectful thing he could say to her. "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." And he will be saying that throughout the Gospel of John. But it still doesn't keep him from hearing her and knowing what needs to be done. And all she has to do is turn to the servants and say, "Whatever he says for you to do, you do it." And that's what we say today. Whatever Jesus says for you to do, just do it. Throughout his life, he always respected and listened to his mother. On that day, he did exactly what she was looking for. He not only bonded with his mother, he not only obeyed his mother, even in his adult years, but he took care of her, even from the cross. If you looked at John's gospel, you can go run back to the 19th chapter. That's towards the end of the story, and Jesus is now hanging on a cross. Some have gathered, not many of his followers, but John is there, and he's standing there with his mother Mary and a couple other women. And it says in John 19:26-27, when Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved, that's John, standing by, he said to his mother, look, he doesn't even call her mother here. He uses the same strong, enduring term of respect, woman. Behold your son. And then he turning to John, it says he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her to his home. And that disciple was John. We know this. John is the only one who tells us this story. When you read and compare the stories of the crucifixion, only John's going to tell you about this scene, this picture, this moment. That in his final hours, Jesus honored his mother and took the steps necessary to have her taken care of in his absence. The one who gave the command to honor his father and mother was now keeping it. And he honored her to the end. He not only provided her a home on earth, by the way, for the rest of her days with John, he provided a home for her in heaven with him for all eternity because of where he was right then, there on the cross. I dug up an old song from For Him called When It's Time for Me to Go. And I didn't want to play it for you. I certainly don't want to sing it for you, and you don't want me to. But there's a line in there that talks about Jesus is going to go build her a house in heaven just down the street from his. And that's the picture. of Jesus caring not only for her for the rest of her days, but for the rest of her eternity. And He didn't just do it for her, folks. He did it for all of us. When He shed His blood on that cross, He was taking care of every mother and every child that would ever come into the world. Today, as we seek to honor our mothers, I want you to remember how Jesus honored His. With a loving respect, bonding as one with the one who gave you life, would you let her know how much you love her today? And if she's not with you, call her. Now, I understand if you were one who would be wearing a white carnation, you can't do that. But just reflect. Reflect on that relationship. With a heart of submission that obeys faithfully in your younger years and seeks the wisdom of her experience in your older years, would you just ask her opinion sometime? Ask her what she's thinking. And then for some of us, when we've experienced this, they are at the point now where they're not even sure who we are. And it's hard. I know it's hard. But with a tender care that takes her by the hand and meets her needs as she once met all of yours, assure her that you will always be there for her for as long as you can. Those are the ways we honor our mothers today. So this Mother's Day, won't you honor the Lord by honoring her? Honor the Lord by honoring His second greatest gift to you. See, your mother's not your first greatest gift. He is. And He gave Himself for you as well as for her. Will you honor Him today by honoring her, the second greatest gift He's ever given you? And if you've never received the greatest gift, you can do that today. I can guarantee you, it'll bless your mother. Would you bow your hearts with me?